Troubled millionaire hears a little girl say, "I can save your marriage." What happens next leaves him stunned. He had everything money could buy, but as he stared at the divorce papers on his marble kitchen counter that snowy December morning, he realized he was about to lose the only thing that had ever truly mattered. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I'm bringing you another story just as interesting and unforgettable as this one. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, let's continue. The penthouse apartment stretched 40 floors above Manhattan, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Central Park blanketed in fresh snow. December 23, 2024. Christmas Eve's Eve. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, surrounded by luxury most people could only dream of, yet feeling more isolated than he'd ever felt in his 42 years. "Theo, I need you to sign these today." Victoria's voice cut through his thoughts like glass. His wife of 15 years stood in the doorway, her auburn hair pulled back in that severe bun she'd taken to wearing lately. Once, that same hair had cascaded over her shoulders as she laughed at his terrible jokes. Now she looked at him like he was a stranger. Christmas Eve. His voice came out rougher than intended. "You want me to sign divorce papers on Christmas Eve?" Victoria's green eyes, the same eyes that had sparkled when he proposed to her on a rooftop in Brooklyn all those years ago, held no warmth now. "You've been signing business deals through every holiday for the past 5 years. I figured you'd appreciate the efficiency." The words hit him like a physical blow. He watched her move through their home, pulling framed photos from shelves, wrapping them carefully in tissue paper. Wedding pictures. Vacation photos from better times. Their daughter Emma's school portraits. "Where's Emma?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "She's staying with my sister in Connecticut until after New Year's. She doesn't need to see this." Victoria didn't look up from her packing. "Besides, when's the last time you asked where she was?" Really asked. Theo opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. When had he last asked? Emma was 16 now, probably buried in her phone, probably relieved not to witness another one of their fights. The fights that had become so frequent, so toxic, that their daughter had learned to disappear into her room the moment either of them raised their voices. "I built all of this for you," he said quietly. "For our family." Victoria finally looked at him, and for a moment, he saw a flash of the woman he'd married. Vulnerable. Hopeful. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "You built all of this for yourself, Theo. The company, the wealth, the reputation. It was always about proving something. To your father, to the world, to yourself. But never to us. We stopped mattering the moment Blackstone Technologies went public." She was right, and they both knew it. The company he built from nothing, a revolutionary AI platform that had changed how businesses operated worldwide, had consumed him. Board meetings, international conferences, acquisition deals that stretched into the early morning hours. He'd told himself it was all for them, but somewhere along the way, the work had become the addiction, and his family had become the casualty. "I can change," he said, hating how desperate he sounded. "I can do better." Victoria zipped up her suitcase with a finality that made his chest tight. "You've been saying that for 3 years, Theo. I can't keep waiting for you to remember that we exist." She walked to the door, then paused. "Sign the papers. My lawyer will pick them up tomorrow morning." The sound of the door closing echoed through the penthouse like a gunshot. Theo stood there, surrounded by 12,000 square feet of emptiness, watching the snow fall outside his windows. In the distance, he could see families in Central Park, parents pulling children on sleds, couples walking hand in hand, kids building snowmen with mittened hands. He picked up the divorce papers, Victoria's neat handwriting on the cover note, irreconcilable differences. Please sign page 12, 15, and 23. Thank you for the good years. V. Thank you for the good years. Like he was a business partner she was politely terminating. What would you do if you realized you'd spent 15 years building the wrong life? Drop a comment below and let us know. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones we need to have with ourselves. And if this story hits different for you, make sure to share it with someone who might need to hear it too. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Board meeting moved to 2 p.m. Monday. Merry Christmas, Mr. Blackstone. Even his assistant was more considerate than he'd been to his own wife. Theo walked to his walk-in closet, pushing past rows of $1,000 suits to find his old Columbia University sweatshirt and a pair of jeans. He couldn't remember the last time he'd worn anything that didn't come with a tie. The clothes felt foreign on his body, like he was playing dress-up in someone else's life. 20 minutes later, he was walking through the lobby of his building, past the doorman's cheerful "Merry Christmas, Mr. Blackstone," and into the bitter December air. The snow was coming down harder now, muffling the sounds of the city. He had no destination in mind, just needed to move, to feel something other than the hollow ache in his chest. His feet carried him toward Central Park, past the horse-drawn carriages and street vendors selling hot chestnuts. Families were everywhere, their laughter cutting through the cold air like music he'd forgotten how to hear. When had he stopped noticing things like this? When had the world become nothing but conference rooms and profit margins? Meanwhile, across the park in Brooklyn, 8-year-old Sophia pressed her face against the frost-covered window of the children's home, watching the other kids get picked up for Christmas visits. Sophia, breakfast. Ms. Rodriguez called from the kitchen, her voice warm with the forced cheer that all the staff wore during the holidays. They tried so hard to make Christmas special for the kids who had nowhere else to go, and Sophia loved them for it, even if she could see right through their bright smiles to the sadness underneath. Sophia had been at the home for 2 years now, ever since her grandmother had passed away. At 8 years old, she'd learned things most adults never figured out: how to read the tiny changes in people's faces, how to tell when someone was lying, how to make herself useful so people wouldn't send her away. "Morning, Ms. Rodriguez," Sophia said, sliding into her chair at the long wooden table where 6 other kids were already eating pancakes shaped like Christmas trees. "Are the Hendersons coming to get Tyler today?" "They sure are, sweetheart. Right after lunch." Ms. Rodriguez set a plate in front of Sophia, the pancakes still steaming. "And don't forget, we're going to the park this morning. The zoo has that special Christmas exhibit." Sophia nodded, cutting her pancakes into perfect little squares. She liked the zoo. Animals were honest in a way that people often weren't. They didn't pretend to be happy when they were sad, or promise things they couldn't deliver. "Hey Sophia," called Marcus, a 10-year-old who'd been at the home longer than anyone. "Think you'll get picked for adoption before you turn 9? "Marcus," Ms. Rodriguez warned, but Sophia held up her hand. "It's okay," she said quietly. "I know the statistics. Kids over 7 have a 23% chance of being adopted. Kids over 8, it drops to 15%. I'm not stupid." The table went quiet. Even Marcus looked uncomfortable. Sophia didn't mean to make people sad. She just couldn't help seeing the truth of things. It was like having a superpower that nobody wanted. "Statistics don't mean anything when it comes to the right family," Ms. Rodriguez said gently. "The right people are looking for exactly who you are, sweetheart." Sophia smiled at her, not because she believed it, but because Ms. Rodriguez needed her to. That was another thing she'd learned. Sometimes you had to protect adults from their own hope. An hour later, bundled in donated winter coats and mismatched mittens, 8 kids from the home walked through the gates of Central Park. The snow was falling in fat, lazy flakes, and Sophia caught them on her tongue, tasting winter and possibilities. She loved these trips. In the park, she could pretend she was just another kid with a family, not a foster child on a supervised outing. She could watch the parents with their children and study how love looked when it was real, the way fathers bent down to tie shoes without being asked, the way mothers automatically caught their kids before they fell. Stay together, everyone. Ms. Rodriguez called as they approached the children's zoo. We'll spend an hour here, then hot chocolate at the visitor center. But Sophia had already spotted something more interesting than the penguins and sheep. Across the pathway, sitting alone on a bench, was a man in expensive clothes crying like his heart was breaking. And Sophia Chun, who had learned to read people's souls like other kids read picture books, knew exactly what she was looking at. Someone who needed saving just as much as she did. The snow fell heavier now, each flake catching the pale December light like tiny stars. Sophia Chun had always been the kind of child who noticed things others missed. The way Ms. Rodriguez's smile faltered when she thought no one was looking, how Tyler's hand shook before visits that might not happen, the exact moment when grown-ups stopped really listening to kids. But she'd never seen anything quite like this. The man sat hunched on the green bench near the sea lion pool, his shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. His clothes screamed money, the kind of wool coat that cost more than most people made in a month, shoes that had probably never touched a sidewalk until today. Everything about him said power, success, control. Everything except the way he was falling apart in broad daylight. Sophia, come on. Marcus called from the petting zoo entrance. The goats are super friendly today. I'll catch up, she called back, her eyes never leaving the crying man. Something pulled at her chest, that same feeling she got when she found injured birds in the home's courtyard. The need to help, even when she knew it might mean getting hurt herself. Ms. Rodriguez was busy counting heads and distributing animal feed. The other kids were already squealing with delight at the baby goats. Nobody noticed as Sophia slipped away from the group, her small boots crunching through the snow toward the bench. She stopped 3 feet away, studying him. Up close, she could see the tear tracks on his cheeks, the way his hands gripped a bundle of official-looking papers. His wedding ring caught the light, white gold, expensive, but he kept twisting it like it was burning him. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you okay?" The man's head snapped up, and Sophia found herself looking into the saddest brown eyes she'd ever seen. For a moment, they just stared at each other. This broken billionaire and this observant foster child, 2 souls recognizing something in each other that neither fully understood yet. He started, then stopped. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying for hours. "I'm fine, sweetheart. You should get back to your group." But Sophia had learned to hear the words people didn't say. She tilted her head, studying his face with the intensity of someone who'd survived by reading expressions. "You're getting divorced," she said simply. Theo Blackstone's breath caught. "How could you possibly? The papers in your hand. The way you keep touching your wedding ring. Plus, you're crying alone in the park on Christmas Eve." Sophia sat down on the bench beside him, her feet dangling above the ground. "My friend Annie's parents got divorced last year. Her dad cried just like that." Theo stared at this tiny girl who'd just read him like an open book. "You're very perceptive." "I have to be," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "When you live where I live, you learn to pay attention to things. It keeps you safe." "Where do you live?" "Brooklyn Children's Home. I'm a foster kid." She said it without shame, the way other kids might say they went to public school. "I've been there 2 years now." Something in Theo's chest cracked open. Here was a child who'd lost everything, sitting in the snow trying to comfort a stranger. Meanwhile, he was falling apart because his wife wanted to leave him, and maybe she was right too. I'm sorry, he said quietly. That must be hard. Sophia shrugged. Everybody's got something hard. What's your something? The question was so direct, so honest, that Theo found himself answering before he could think better of it. I think I forgot how to be a good husband and father. I got so busy building my company that I forgot to build my family. What kind of company? Technology. Artificial intelligence. We help businesses run more efficiently. He gestured vaguely at the papers in his lap. I've been traveling constantly, working 18-hour days. I kept telling myself it was for them, but it wasn't, Sophia finished. It was for you. Because work felt easier than feelings. Theo's mouth fell open. How do you? I watch people a lot. Adults think they're complicated, but you're really not. You just do things that feel good in the moment and tell yourself stories about why it's actually good for everyone else. She swung her legs back and forth. What's your wife's name? Victoria. What's her favorite color? Theo opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. Eye blue? Maybe green. You don't know. I know other things about her, he said defensively. I know she takes her coffee with exactly 1 sugar cube. I know she hates when people are late. I know she wanted to be a teacher before she married me. Those are facts, Sophia said gently. I'm talking about knowing her heart. Like, what makes her laugh so hard she snorts? What's she scared of? What does she dream about when she thinks nobody's watching? Each question hit like a physical blow. Theo realized with growing horror that he couldn't answer any of them. When had he stopped seeing Victoria as a person instead of just another part of his life to manage? I can save your marriage, Sophia said suddenly. Theo blinked. What? I can save your marriage, she repeated, turning to face him fully. I'm really good at figuring out what people need. And I can tell you exactly what your wife needs from you. You're 8 years old, Theo said weakly. So? I've been watching marriages my whole life. The good ones, the bad ones, the ones that break. Her voice was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing the weather. Plus, I don't have any of the grown-up stuff that makes it complicated. I just see what I see. Have you ever had a moment where a child's honesty completely changed how you saw a situation? Kids have this amazing ability to cut through our excuses and see straight to the truth. What's the most profound thing a child has ever said to you? Share your story in the comments below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button because this story is just getting started. Theo stared at her, this impossible child who'd somehow managed to diagnose his entire marriage in 5 minutes. Why would you want to help me? Sophia was quiet for a long moment, her breath making small clouds in the cold air. Because you're sad the same way I'm sad. And because... She hesitated, looking younger than her 8 years. Because maybe if I help you keep your family, it means families can be saved. Even when they're really broken. The words hung between them like a bridge neither of them had expected to cross. Theo felt something shift in his chest, not hope exactly, but the possibility of hope. This strange, wise little girl had seen something in him that he'd stopped seeing in himself. What's your name? He asked. Sophia Chun. What's yours? Theodore Blackstone. But everyone calls me Theo. Okay, Theo. She stood up, brushing snow off her donated coat. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to tell me everything about Victoria that you actually remember, not the facts, but the feelings. And then I'm going to tell you what you need to do to show her that you still love her the way she needs to be loved. And you really think that will work? Sophia looked at him with eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. I think it's your only chance. Because right now, you're trying to save your marriage the same way you built your company, with money and power and control. But marriages don't work that way. They work with truth and time and showing up even when it's scary. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, writing something on it with a stubby pencil. This is my address. If you really want to save your marriage, meet me here tomorrow at noon. Christmas Day. I'll be waiting. She pressed the paper into his hand, and Theo was surprised by how warm her small fingers were despite the cold. Sophia. Ms. Rodriguez's voice called across the zoo. There you are. We're heading to the visitor center now. I have to go, Sophia said, already backing away. But Theo? Your wife didn't really leave you because you worked too much. She left because you stopped seeing her. There's a difference. She turned and ran toward her group, her boots slipping slightly on the snowy path. Theo watched her go, this remarkable child who'd somehow managed to crack open his heart in the space of 20 minutes. He looked down at the paper in his hand. Written in careful third-grade handwriting, Brooklyn Children's Home, 847 Prospect Avenue. Tomorrow at noon. Don't let her down. Sophia. For the first time in months, Theo Blackstone felt something other than despair. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he could learn to be worth saving. Theo stared at the crumpled piece of paper in his hand for a full minute after Sophia disappeared into the crowd of children. The words seemed to burn through his expensive leather gloves. Don't let her down. He stood abruptly, shoving the note deep into his coat pocket. This was insane. He was Theo Blackstone. He'd built a tech empire from nothing, negotiated billion-dollar deals, spoken at Davos. He didn't need advice from a foster child about his marriage. The divorce papers crinkled as he folded them, sliding them into his briefcase with practiced efficiency. What he needed was his lawyer, not fairy tale solutions from an 8-year-old who probably still believed in Santa Claus. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Board meeting moved to 3 p.m. Yamamoto deal requires your signature by end of day. Perfect. Work. Logic. Numbers that made sense. He could lose himself in spreadsheets and profit margins, things that responded predictably to his expertise. Not like this emotional chaos that made him feel like he was drowning in his own life. But as he walked toward the park exit, Sophia's words echoed in his mind. She left because you stopped seeing her. No, he muttered aloud, causing a jogger to glance at him sideways. She left because she's unrealistic about what it takes to maintain our lifestyle. Someone has to work. Someone has to. What's her favorite color? The question ambushed him again. He stopped walking, standing motionless in the middle of the path while people flowed around him like he was a stone in a river. Blue. Victoria's favorite color was definitely blue. She wore it all the time. That blue dress she'd worn to the Met Gala last year, the one that made her look like she was glowing. Except wait. Hadn't she said something about that dress? Something about how she'd wanted to wear the green one but knew the blue photographed better for his company's image? Theo's chest tightened. When had Victoria started choosing her clothes based on what looked good for his business instead of what made her happy? His phone rang. Victoria's name flashed on the screen, and his heart jumped before he remembered. She was probably calling about logistics. Custody schedules, asset division, the cold mathematics of dissolving a life together. Hello, he answered, his voice carefully neutral. Theo. Victoria's voice was tired, strained. I'm at the apartment picking up some more things. I wanted to let you know I'll be gone before you get back. You don't have to rush. It's your home too. A bitter laugh. Is it? I haven't felt like this was my home in years. The words hit him like a physical blow. Victoria, what do you mean? We built this life together. Everything I've done. Everything you've done has been about the company, she interrupted. When was the last time you asked me about my day? Not about whether I needed anything, or if I was handling the social commitments properly, but actually asked about my day. Theo opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. He couldn't remember. I rest my case, Victoria said softly. I'll leave my key on the counter. Wait. The word came out desperate, raw. Don't. Can we talk? Really talk. We are talking, Theo. We've been talking for months. But you've been having a different conversation than I have. Her voice cracked slightly. You've been talking about fixing problems and managing outcomes. I've been talking about feeling invisible in my own marriage. She left because you stopped seeing her. I see you, Theo said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew they sounded hollow. Do you? What did I do yesterday, Theo? Can you tell me one thing I did yesterday that wasn't related to your schedule or your needs? The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of too many unasked questions, too many unnoticed moments. I went to the museum, Victoria said finally. The Brooklyn Museum. There's a new exhibition on women artists from the 1920s. I spent 3 hours there, and I cried looking at this painting of a woman sitting alone in a crowded room because it was the first time in months I'd seen myself reflected in something beautiful. Theo felt like he'd been punched. Victoria, I didn't know you were interested in. I used to tell you about things like that. Before you started responding to everything I said with "That's nice, honey," while staring at your phone. Her voice was getting steadier, more resolved. I stopped sharing because you stopped listening. And then I stopped mattering, even to myself. That's not true. You matter more than anything. No, Theo. The company matters more than anything. The deals matter more than anything. Your reputation, your net worth, your next acquisition, those things matter more than anything. She was crying now, he could hear it. I used to matter. Before I became another item on your to-do list. The phone went quiet except for the sound of her breathing. Theo stood frozen in Central Park, watching families walk by with their children, couples holding hands, people living the life he'd somehow forgotten how to live. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know you are. But sorry isn't enough anymore. Sorry is what you say when you're late for dinner again, or when you miss another school play, or when you book a business trip on our anniversary without asking. Victoria's voice was breaking. Sorry is what you say when you think love is about forgiveness instead of attention. What does she dream about when she thinks nobody's watching? The question hit him again, and with it came a devastating realization. He'd been treating Victoria like a business partner instead of the woman he'd fallen in love with. When had he stopped being curious about her thoughts, her hopes, her fears? Victoria, what if I could change? Really change? You've said that before. But I mean it this time. What if I could learn to see you again? The silence stretched so long that Theo wondered if she'd hung up. I'm tired of what-ifs, she said finally. I'm tired of hoping you'll remember that I exist. I'm tired of competing with your phone for your attention. I'm tired of being married to someone who loves me like a possession instead of a person. The line went dead. Theo stood there holding his phone, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. Every instinct told him to call her back, to fix this the way he fixed everything else, with persistence and resources and sheer force of will. But Sophia's words kept echoing. You're trying to save your marriage the same way you built your company, with money and power and control. But marriages don't work that way. He pulled out the crumpled note again, reading it in the fading afternoon light. Brooklyn Children's Home, 847 Prospect Avenue. Tomorrow at noon. This was ridiculous. He was a grown man, a successful businessman. He didn't need a child to tell him how to save his marriage. He'd figure it out himself, the way he always did. Strategic thinking, market analysis, identifying the core problem and implementing a solution. But as he walked home through the darkening park, past the couple sharing hot chocolate and the families building snowmen, Theo couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he'd been using the wrong tools to build the most important thing in his life. His phone buzzed with another work email. Then another. The familiar pull of problems he knew how to solve, challenges that responded to his expertise. He looked at the screen, then at the note in his other hand. Tomorrow at noon. He shoved both the phone and the paper into his pockets and kept walking, leaving the question of which one he'd choose hanging in the cold December air like his breath, visible for a moment before disappearing into the gathering dark. Theo stood outside the Brooklyn Children's Home at 11:47 a.m., questioning every decision that had led him to this moment. The building was older than he'd expected, red brick with cheerful yellow trim, children's artwork taped to windows, a small playground where kids bundled in winter coats chased each other through the snow. His driver waited in the Tesla, probably wondering why his boss was visiting a foster facility in Prospect Heights instead of closing the Yamamoto deal. Theo had wondered the same thing during the entire drive from Manhattan. But Victoria's words from yesterday kept replaying, "You love me like a possession instead of a person." The truth of it sat in his chest like a weight he couldn't lift. At exactly noon, the front door opened, and Sophia emerged wearing a bright purple coat that looked too big for her small frame. She spotted him immediately and walked over with the same fearless confidence she'd shown in the park. "You came," she said, but there was something in her voice, surprise mixed with relief, that made Theo realize she hadn't been entirely sure he would. "I said I would. Adults say lots of things." She studied his face with those unsettling dark eyes. "But you look different today. Sadder. I talked to my wife yesterday, after you left. And you were right. I don't see her anymore." The admission felt like swallowing glass. "I don't know when I stopped, but I did." Sophia nodded like this was obvious. "Want to go somewhere we can talk? There's a coffee shop down the block. They have good hot chocolate." 20 minutes later, they sat across from each other in Prospect Park, a small cafe with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Sophia wrapped her hands around her mug of hot chocolate like she was trying to absorb its warmth, while Theo's coffee sat untouched, growing cold. "Tell me about the last time you were happy with your wife," Sophia said. Theo started to speak, then stopped. "Happy? When had they been happy? We went to Turks and Caicos last February. Victoria loved the beach." "That's not what I asked. I asked when you were happy together, not when she was happy while you were there." The distinction hit him like a slap. "I was checking emails most of the trip." "Of course you were." Sophia took a sip of her hot chocolate, leaving a foam mustache that she didn't bother to wipe away. "What about before that? Before you got so busy being important that you forgot how to be happy?" Theo closed his eyes, thinking back. Our 3rd anniversary. We were living in that tiny apartment in Queens, barely making rent. I was working 18-hour days trying to get the company off the ground, and Victoria was substitute teaching. What happened? I came home exhausted, stressed about a presentation that could make or break everything. Victoria had made dinner, but I was too worked up to eat. I started pacing, talking about contingency plans and backup strategies. Theo smiled at the memory. She grabbed my hands and said, "Theo, shut up and dance with me." "Did you?" I told her I didn't have time. That everything depended on the next day going perfectly. His smile faded. So she turned on the music anyway and danced by herself in our kitchen while I reviewed my notes. And I remember thinking she looked beautiful, but also thinking she was being impractical. What happened with your presentation? I nailed it. Got the funding we needed. But when I came home to celebrate. Theo trailed off, the memory suddenly sharp and painful. She was asleep on the couch. She'd waited up for me, but I'd stopped at the office first to send follow-up emails. By the time I got home, she'd given up. Did you wake her up? No. I thought I was being considerate, letting her sleep. Theo laughed bitterly. I didn't realize I was choosing work over sharing the most important moment of my career with the person I loved most. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, swirling her hot chocolate. My foster mom before this one, Mrs. Patterson, used to say that love is about showing up. Not just being there, but really showing up. Like all of you. What happened to Mrs. Patterson? She died. Heart attack. Sophia's voice was matter-of-fact, but Theo caught the flash of pain in her eyes. She was the best one I had. She used to make pancakes on Saturday mornings and ask me about my dreams. Not my goals or my plans, my actual dreams, the ones I had when I was sleeping. That sounds nice. It was. For 8 months. Sophia looked out the window at the snow falling steadily. But here's the thing, even though she's gone, I still remember feeling seen by her. Like I mattered just because I existed, not because I was good or helpful or convenient. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Your wife doesn't feel seen, Sophia continued. She feels managed. Like she's part of your schedule instead of part of your life. How do you know so much about relationships? You're 8. I watch people. When you don't have parents, you learn to read the parents you do have really carefully. You figure out what makes them happy, what makes them angry, what makes them pay attention to you. Sophia's voice was older than her years. I've been in 6 different homes. I know what love looks like, and I know what people pretending to love looks like. Which one am I? You're not pretending. You really do love your wife. But you're loving her like she's a business deal you already closed instead of a person you're still trying to win. Theo felt something crack open in his chest. I don't know how to be different. Work is what I'm good at. It's how I provide for her, how I show I care. But what if she doesn't need you to provide? What if she needs you to participate? I don't understand. Sophia pulled out a crayon from her coat pocket and started drawing on a napkin. Mrs. Patterson didn't give me stuff. She gave me attention. She'd ask me questions about my day, and then she'd ask more questions about my answers. She'd remember what I told her and bring it up later. She'd notice when I was sad even when I was trying to hide it. She pushed the napkin toward him. She'd drawn 2 stick figures, one large, one small, dancing in what looked like a kitchen. Your wife danced alone because you taught her that your work was more important than her joy. But what if next time, you put down your phone and danced with her instead? What if there is no next time? What if I've already lost her? Then you'll have lost her. But at least you'll have tried to find her first. Sophia's voice was gentle but firm. Right now, you're trying to save your marriage without changing anything about yourself. That's not how it works. Theo stared at the drawing, seeing his life reflected in 2 stick figures who should have been dancing together but weren't. What would you do? If you were me? I'd stop trying to fix her and start trying to find her. I'd ask her questions I've never asked before. I'd learn who she is now, not who I remember her being. Sophia finished her hot chocolate and wiped the foam mustache away. And I'd do it without expecting anything back. Not because I wanted to save my marriage, but because I wanted to know my wife. You really think it could work? I think it's the only thing that could work. Everything else is just more of the same. Sophia stood up and put her coat back on. But you have to mean it. You can't pretend to care about her dreams just to get her to stay. She'll know. How will she know? Because women who feel invisible become really good at spotting fake attention. Sophia looked at him with those two knowing eyes. Just like foster kids become really good at spotting fake love. They walked back to the children's home in comfortable silence, the snow crunching under their feet. At the entrance, Sophia turned to face him. There's something else, she said. Something I didn't tell you yesterday. What? I heard her crying. Theo's heart stopped. What do you mean? Your wife. When you were on the phone with her yesterday in the park, I was still close enough to hear. She was crying the whole time, even when her voice sounded steady. Sophia's expression was serious. She's not leaving because she doesn't love you. She's leaving because she does love you, and watching you not love her back is breaking her heart. The words hit Theo like a physical blow. He'd been so focused on losing Victoria that he hadn't considered what it cost her to leave. What do I do? You figure out who she is when you're not looking. You learn what makes her happy when it has nothing to do with you. You find out what she dreams about, what scares her, what makes her laugh until her sides hurt. Sophia's voice was steady, wise. And then you love that person, not the person you think she should be. She started to go inside, then turned back one more time. Oh, and Theo? When you find out what her real favorite color is, don't buy her something in that color. Just notice it. Notice it and remember it and mention it later, like it matters to you because it matters to her. The door closed behind her, leaving Theo standing alone in the falling snow, holding a napkin with two stick figures dancing in a kitchen, finally understanding that he'd been trying to save his marriage with the same tools that had destroyed it. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant about the Yamamoto deal. For the first time in 15 years, Theo deleted a work message without reading it. He had more important things to do. Theo didn't go home that night. Instead, he found himself walking through Brooklyn Heights, past brownstones with warm lights in their windows, families visible through curtains eating dinner together, children doing homework at kitchen tables while parents moved around them in comfortable rhythms. He'd never noticed these scenes before. In his world of black cars and private elevators, family life happened behind closed doors, scheduled into calendars like business meetings. But now, watching strangers live their ordinary lives, he felt the weight of what he'd been missing. At 8:30 p.m., he called Victoria. Theo? Where are you? I've been. What's your favorite color? He interrupted. Silence. Then, what? Your favorite color. I realized I don't know. You called me at 8:30 at night to ask about my favorite color? I called because I spent today with an 8-year-old who sees things I don't, and she made me realize I don't know who you are anymore. Maybe I never did. Victoria's voice was cautious. Where are you? Brooklyn Heights. Walking around, looking at families through windows, trying to remember the last time I asked you a question because I actually wanted to know the answer. Theo, you're scaring me. Green, he said suddenly. I was going to guess green because our bedroom walls are green, and I thought that meant something. But that's not right, is it? I chose those walls. Everything in our house, I chose or approved or paid for. So what's your actual favorite color? Victoria was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than he'd ever heard it. Yellow. Like sunflowers. Like the kitchen in that apartment in Queens where we used to. Where you used to dance alone while I worked. You remember that? I remember thinking you were being impractical. I remember choosing my presentation over dancing with my wife. Theo stopped walking, leaning against a lamppost. Vic, I need to tell you something. About why I am the way I am. Okay. I was 7 when my dad left. 7, and he told me he was going to buy milk and never came back. My mom worked 3 jobs to keep us fed, and I learned that love was something that could disappear without warning, usually when money ran out. He'd never told her this part. Not the real part. When I was 12, we got evicted from our apartment. Had to live in my mom's car for 2 weeks before she could scrape together enough for a security deposit on a new place. I swore I'd never be that vulnerable again. Never be the person who couldn't pay rent, couldn't provide, couldn't guarantee security. Theo. I built my entire life around making sure that would never happen to us. But somewhere along the way, I stopped building a life and started building a fortress. And I locked you out of it. Victoria's voice was thick with tears. I never needed you to be rich, Theo. I needed you to need me. I do need you. God, Vic, I need you so much it terrifies me. No, you need me to be there. You need me to be available when you have time for me, grateful for whatever attention you can spare, happy with whatever version of yourself you're willing to share. Her voice was breaking. But you don't need me to be me. You need me to be your wife, the role I play in your life. The truth of it hit him like a physical pain. How do I fix this? I don't know if you can. I don't know if I have anything left to give you. Then let me give you something instead. What? The truth. About why I'm really scared to lose you. Theo closed his eyes, feeling the cold December air burn his lungs. It's not about the house or the lifestyle or what people will think. It's because you're the only person who ever saw me when I had nothing and decided I was worth keeping anyway. You're the only person who knows I used to steal food from the corner store when I was hungry, who knows I wore the same 3 shirts to school for 2 years, who knows I cried when my mom couldn't afford a birthday cake when I turned 15. I remember, Victoria whispered. You married a poor kid who was determined to never be poor again. But somewhere along the way, I forgot that the poor kid was the one you fell in love with, not the billionaire he became. I fell in love with the poor kid who dreamed big but still made time to dance with me. Who worked 18-hour days but still asked about my day. Who was building something but not at the expense of everything else. I don't know how to be him again. Maybe you don't have to be him again. Maybe you just have to remember what he knew that you forgot. What's that? That love isn't about what you can provide. It's about what you're willing to share. Theo found himself crying on a street corner in Brooklyn, 42 years old and finally understanding that all his success meant nothing if he experienced it alone. Vic, I met this little girl yesterday. She's 8 in foster care, and she has this way of seeing straight through people. She told me I love you like a possession instead of a person. She's right. I know. But she also told me it's not too late to learn how to love you differently. If you're willing to teach me. Victoria was quiet for a long time. What would that look like? I don't know. But I'd like to find out. Starting with your favorite color being yellow, not green. It's yellow because of the sunflowers at the farmer's market where we had our first real date. You bought me a bouquet even though they cost $12 and you only had 15 in your wallet. I remember. We split a pretzel for lunch because I couldn't afford both flowers and food. And I didn't care because you'd noticed that I stopped to look at the sunflowers every time we walked past them. You paid attention to something small that made me happy. When did I stop doing that? When making money became more important than making memories. The words weren't said with cruelty, just sadness. A statement of fact that hurt because it was true. I want to learn how to make memories again, Theo said. With you. If you'll let me. I'm scared, Theo. I'm scared of hoping again and having you go back to being the person who's too busy for my dreams. Then don't hope. Just let me show you. One day at a time, one question at a time, one dance at a time. What if it's too late? Then it's too late. But what if it's not? Victoria was crying now. He could hear it in her voice. I don't know how to trust you again. Then don't trust me. Trust yourself. Trust that you'll know if I'm really changing or just performing change to get what I want. How will I know the difference? Because real change doesn't ask for credit. Real change doesn't expect gratitude. Real change just is. They stayed on the phone in silence, both of them crying, both of them terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Theo. Yeah. Come home. Not to fix anything or prove anything. Just come home. Okay. And Theo? When you get here, don't try to have all the answers. Don't try to solve this tonight. Just come home and ask me about my day. Ask me about my dreams. Ask me about something that has nothing to do with you. I can do that. And I'll try to remember how to answer. Theo hung up and called his driver, giving him the address of a 24-hour flower shop in Manhattan. He had some sunflowers to buy, not because Victoria needed them, but because he needed to remember what it felt like to pay attention to something small that made her happy. As the Tesla pulled away from Brooklyn Heights, Theo thought about Sophia's words, "You figure out who she is when you're not looking." For the first time in years, he was looking forward to going home not because it was the end of his workday, but because it was the beginning of something else entirely. Something that felt like hope. Theo arrived home at 10:47 p.m. with a bouquet of sunflowers and no plan beyond Victoria's instructions. Ask about her day, ask about her dreams, ask about something that had nothing to do with him. He found her in the kitchen, still in her burgundy sweater from earlier, sitting at the marble island with a cup of tea and a journal he'd never seen before. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she looked younger somehow, like the woman he'd married 15 years ago. "Sunflowers," she said, noticing the bouquet. It wasn't a question. "From the same market. They're still $12. He set them on the counter between them, careful not to make it feel like a transaction. I asked the vendor if he remembered us. He said he remembers the young couple who used to come every Saturday morning, that the guy always looked nervous when he bought flowers. You were nervous? Every time. I kept thinking you'd realize you could do better. Theo pulled out the stool across from her, leaving space between them. Can I ask you something? Victoria nodded. What's in the journal? She touched the leather cover protectively. Things I never said. Things I stopped saying because you stopped hearing them. Like what? Like how I wanted to go back to school and get my master's degree in art therapy. Like how I've been volunteering at the Children's Hospital for 3 years and you've never asked about it. Like how I still write poetry sometimes when I can't sleep. Each revelation was a small shock. You write poetry? I always have. Even when we were dating. You used to ask me to read them to you. I remember. You'd get shy and hide behind your hair. And you'd move my hair away from my face and tell me I was beautiful when I was being brave. The memory hit him with unexpected force. I forgot that version of us. So did I for a while. They sat in comfortable silence, the sunflowers between them like a bridge to their past. Victoria opened her journal and turned it toward him. This is from last Tuesday. The day you missed dinner because of the Singapore call. He read her handwriting. I made his favorite meal and ate alone again. The silence in our house isn't peaceful anymore. It's just empty. I wonder if he notices that I exist when I'm not asking him about his day, supporting his decisions, or being grateful for his success. I wonder if I notice either. Vic. The pain in his chest was sharp and immediate. I'm not showing you this to hurt you. I'm showing you because you asked what's in the journal, and I'm tired of hiding who I am to make room for who you need me to be. Who do you need me to be? Present. Curious. Willing to be wrong about things. She turned the page. This is from 6 months ago. Found myself daydreaming about divorce today. Not because I don't love him, but because I've started to think love might not be enough. Love without attention is just loneliness with company. Theo felt something crack open inside his chest. I've been giving you loneliness with company. And I've been accepting it because I thought it was better than being alone. But maybe it's not. What changed? You did. Today. Not the grand gesture or the perfect words, but the fact that you called and didn't already know what I was going to say. You were surprised by my answers. I was. When's the last time I surprised you? Theo thought about it. I don't know. That's terrible, isn't it? It's honest. Victoria flipped to a blank page. Can I ask you something? Anything. When you imagine us in 10 years, what do you see? Us still married, probably traveling more, maybe grandchildren. No, not the facts. What do you see? What are we doing? How are we together? The question stopped him. He'd spent so much time planning their financial future, he'd never pictured their emotional one. I see us having breakfast together and actually talking. I see us taking walks without checking our phones. I see us laughing about something stupid and silly. His voice got quieter. I see us dancing in the kitchen again. What else? I see you showing me your poetry and me understanding why it matters to you. I see me telling you about work not because I need to vent, but because I want you to know what I'm thinking about. He paused. I see us being friends again, not just married. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I'd forgotten we used to be friends. Best friends. You were the first person I wanted to tell when something good happened. And the first person you wanted to see when something bad happened. When did that change? When success became more important than connection. When you started protecting me from your problems instead of sharing them with me. I thought I was being strong. You were being lonely. And making me lonely too. Theo reached across the island, stopping just short of her hand. Can I tell you about something bad that happened today? Yes. I realized I've been married to you for 15 years and I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know your dreams, your fears, your favorite way to spend a Saturday afternoon. I don't know what makes you laugh or what keeps you up at night. His voice broke. And I realized you probably don't know me either. Victoria placed her hand over his. I know you take your coffee black because you think adding anything makes it a waste of time. I know you still count money in your head when you're nervous, even though you haven't had to worry about money in 20 years. I know you help your mother with her bills but never tell her it's from you because you don't want her to feel like charity. You know all that? I know you, Theo. I just don't know if you want to be known. I do. God, I do. He turned his hand over, palm up. I want you to know that I'm terrified of losing you. I want you to know that I still think about the night we got engaged, how you cried when I gave you your grandmother's ring instead of buying something expensive. I want you to know that I drive past our old apartment sometimes when I'm feeling lost, just to remember what it felt like to have enough. You drive past our old apartment? The one in Queens. With the yellow kitchen. I sit in the car and remember you dancing alone while I worked on my laptop, and I wonder when I stopped joining you. Victoria was crying now. I stopped dancing because you stopped noticing. I noticed. I just thought I was too busy to participate. What if you weren't too busy? What if you just forgot how? Then teach me. Right now. Right now. Victoria looked at him for a long moment, then closed her journal and walked to their sound system. She scrolled through her phone until she found what she was looking for, a song he hadn't heard in years. This was playing the night we got engaged, she said as the first notes filled the kitchen. I remember. We were washing dishes. And you grabbed my hand and spun me around with soap suds still on my fingers. You laughed so hard you cried. I cried because I was happy. Because you stopped everything just to dance with me for 3 minutes. The music swelled, and Theo stood up, extending his hand. Dance with me now. We're different people now. Then let's see who we are when we're dancing. Victoria took his hand, and they moved together slowly in their marble kitchen, surrounded by the trappings of his success, but finding their way back to something that belonged to both of them. Tell me about the children's hospital, Theo said as they swayed. I read stories to kids who are having surgery. Some of them are scared, some are angry, some are just lonely. I help them make sense of their feelings through stories. That's beautiful. It's important to me. Tell me more. And she did. As they danced, Victoria told him about the 8-year-old who wrote her a poem about being brave, about the teenager who taught her to see hope in impossible situations, about the parents who needed someone to sit with them while they waited for news. I want to meet them, Theo said. If you'll let me. Why? Because they matter to you. Because understanding what matters to you is how I learn to matter to you. You've always mattered to me, Theo. I just needed you to matter to yourself in a way that included me. The song ended, but they kept dancing to the silence, holding each other in their kitchen like they were 27 again, poor and in love and unafraid of needing each other. I have something to tell you, Theo said, about the little girl I met today. Sophia. You remembered her name. Of course I remembered her name. She's the reason you're here asking about my favorite color and dancing with me in our kitchen. She's in foster care. Has been for 3 years. Her parents died in a car accident, and she's been moved around ever since. That's heartbreaking. She's the most insightful person I've ever met. She sees people the way you see people, with complete honesty and no judgment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking maybe we have room in our life for someone who needs a family as much as we need to remember how to be one. Victoria stopped moving. Are you talking about adoption? I'm talking about love. The kind that shows up not because it's convenient, but because it's necessary. Theo, that's a huge decision. So is staying married. So is learning to be different people than we've been. So is choosing to love each other on purpose instead of out of habit. Victoria looked at him with something he hadn't seen in years, hope mixed with possibility mixed with a kind of love that changes everything. Tell me more about her, she said. And as they stood in their kitchen, still holding each other, Theo told his wife about the 8-year-old who had taught him that love wasn't about what you could provide, but about what you were willing to share. For the first time in years, they were sharing everything. Have you ever had someone walk into your life and completely change how you see everything? Someone who made you realize that the life you've been living isn't the life you actually want? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how unexpected connections have transformed your perspective. And if this story is resonating with you, make sure to subscribe because what happens next with Theo, Victoria, and Sophia will absolutely amaze you. The next morning brought the kind of clarity that feels like a curse. Theo woke at 5:47 a.m. with Victoria's head on his shoulder, her breathing steady and peaceful in a way he hadn't heard in months. For exactly 37 seconds, he allowed himself to believe that one conversation, one dance, one night of honesty could rebuild 15 years of distance. Then his phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from his attorney, Howard Chun. 2 from his CFO. 7 from his head of security. The timestamp on the first call, 4:23 a.m. Theo extracted himself carefully from Victoria's embrace and stepped into the hallway to call Howard back. Thank God, Howard's voice was sharp with urgency. We have a problem. The Singapore deal is falling apart. Kim Industries is pulling out. They're citing concerns about your emotional stability and recent erratic behavior. What recent erratic behavior? Someone photographed you yesterday at Central Park with an unidentified child. The photos are all over social media with speculation about a secret family, an affair, a breakdown. The board is in emergency session. They want explanations, and they want them now. Theo's blood went cold. What photographs? You and a little girl. Walking, talking, holding hands. The captions are calling it everything from Billionaire's secret daughter to Blackstone's mental health crisis. Kim Industries sees it as a liability. That's insane. That's business. You know this. Personal drama equals corporate risk. They're threatening to walk away from a $12 billion deal because they think you're having some kind of breakdown. I'm not having a breakdown. Then what were you doing in Central Park with a child that no one knows about? Theo closed his eyes. She's a foster kid. She was helping me with my marriage. A foster kid was helping you with your marriage? I know how that sounds. Do you? Because it sounds like you've completely lost perspective. The board is meeting in 2 hours. You need to be there with a coherent explanation, or they're going to vote on your removal as CEO. The words hit him like a physical blow. My removal? Theo, you've been distracted for months. Missing meetings, making emotional decisions, and now this. They're scared you're becoming a liability to the company. The company I built. The company that employs 12,000 people and has shareholders who don't care about your personal problems. Get your head together and get to the office. Howard hung up, and Theo stood in his hallway, watching the sunrise paint golden streaks across his marble floors. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd built, was collapsing because he'd spent one afternoon being human. He walked back to the bedroom, where Victoria was just waking up. Good morning, she said softly, smiling at him with the same warmth she'd shown him the night before. We have a problem. The warmth disappeared. What kind of problem? The kind that could destroy everything. Theo explained the phone call, the photographs, the board meeting. With each word, he watched Victoria's face close off, watched her retreat into the same protective distance she'd lived in for years. So they want you to choose, she said when he finished. Choose what? Between your company and your personal life. Between being the CEO they need and being the husband I need. That's not how I see it. That's exactly how you see it. You're already calculating, aren't you? Figuring out how to minimize the damage, how to convince the board that yesterday was an anomaly. I'm trying to protect what we have. What we have is one conversation and one dance. What you're protecting is your empire. My empire provides our life. No, Theo. Your empire is your life. I'm just the person who lives in it with you. The accusation hung between them like a blade. That's not fair. Isn't it? You're more concerned about losing your position than you are about losing me. I'm concerned about losing everything. You can't lose everything because you never had everything. You had wealth, you had power, you had control. But you didn't have a marriage. You didn't have a family. You didn't have connection. I had you. You had my presence. You had my compliance. You had my willingness to be grateful for the scraps of attention you gave me between business deals. That's not. It is. And the fact that you're standing here, calculating how to spin yesterday's connection into something the board will accept, proves it. Theo felt the familiar surge of defensive anger. I'm trying to figure out how to keep our life together. What life? The one where you work 18-hour days and I eat dinner alone? The one where you miss every anniversary because of a conference call? The one where I have to make appointments through your assistant to have conversations with my own husband? I'm trying to change. You're trying to manage. You're trying to control the narrative so you can have your company and your wife and your foster daughter and your perfect reputation. But you can't control everything, Theo. Sometimes you have to choose. I shouldn't have to choose between my work and my family. You've been choosing your work over your family for 15 years. The only difference is that now there are consequences. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. So what do you want me to do? Let them destroy everything I've built. I want you to ask yourself what you're actually building. Because if it's an empire that requires you to be emotionally unavailable, then maybe it's not worth building. Easy for you to say. You've never had to support anyone. You've never had to make decisions that affect thousands of people. I've been supporting you for 15 years. I've been making decisions about what I could sacrifice to keep you comfortable and successful. Don't tell me I don't understand responsibility. That's not the same thing. No, it's not. Because your responsibility pays you billions of dollars and gets you recognition and power. My responsibility is invisible and thankless and apparently worthless. I never said it was worthless. You never said it was valuable either. They stood in their bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of his success, the custom furniture, the original artwork, the walk-in closet full of hand-tailored suits, and all of it felt like a monument to his failure as a husband. I have to go to the office, he said. Of course you do. What does that mean? It means you're going to walk into that boardroom and convince them that yesterday was a mistake. You're going to apologize for being human and promise to be the machine they need you to be. I'm going to try to save our future. You're going to choose your company over your family. Again. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're going to sacrifice what we rebuilt last night to protect what you built over the last 20 years. And if I don't? If I let them remove me as CEO, then what? We lose everything. We lose money. We lose status. We lose the life that's been making us both miserable. You want me to give up my company? I want you to want something more than your company. I do want something more. Then prove it. How? Don't go to the meeting. The suggestion was so shocking it took him a moment to process it. I can't not go to the meeting. You can. You just won't. If I don't go, they'll remove me. And if you do go, you'll remove yourself from everything that actually matters. My work matters. Your work is your life. Your family is supposed to be your life. Your marriage is supposed to be your life. But you've never been able to tell the difference. I'm trying to learn the difference. No, you're trying to have both without having to choose. You want to be the CEO who makes the hard decisions and the husband who dances in the kitchen, but you can't be both when they're in conflict. Why not? Because being vulnerable requires trust, and you can't trust people when you're trying to control them. Because being present requires availability, and you can't be available when you're always managing a crisis. Because being loved requires being known, and you can't be known when you're always performing. Each word landed like a physical blow. So what are you saying? I'm saying that yesterday was beautiful and real and the closest we've been to each other in years. And I'm saying that if you walk out that door to go convince your board that it was a mistake, then it was a mistake. Victoria. I'm also saying that if you choose your company over your family today, don't expect your family to be waiting when you get home. The ultimatum hung between them like a chasm. You're asking me to choose between my life's work and my marriage. I'm asking you to choose between your life's work and your life. They're the same thing. No, Theo. They're not. And the fact that you think they are is why we're here. He looked at his wife, really looked at her. She was standing in her pajamas in their marble bathroom, her hair messy from sleep, her eyes filled with the kind of pain that comes from years of being second place in her own marriage. I built this company for us, he said quietly. You built this company for you. I just happened to be there when you built it. That's not true. Then why are you more afraid of losing it than you are of losing me? The question hit him in the chest like a hammer. Because she was right. Because standing there, calculating the cost of missing the board meeting, he was more afraid of losing his position than he was of losing his wife. I have to go, he said. I know. I'll fix this. You can't fix this with a meeting, Theo. You can't negotiate your way out of having to choose who you are. I can try. You can try. But when you walk out that door, you're choosing. And when you come home tonight, we'll both know what you chose. Theo kissed her forehead, grabbed his suit from the closet, and headed for the door. As he reached for the handle, Victoria called his name. Theo. Yeah. That little girl you met yesterday? She's going to be moved to a different facility this afternoon. Her caseworker called the hospital where I volunteer. They wanted to know if anyone could give her a reference for the new placement. His hand froze on the door handle. This afternoon? At 2 p.m. Same time as your board meeting. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know what you're choosing between. It's not just your company and your marriage. It's your company and your chance to be the man you told me you wanted to be last night. Theo stood at the door, his hand on the handle, his suit in his other hand, his entire world hanging in the balance. I have to go, he said. I know, Victoria said. I know. And as he walked out of their bedroom, out of their penthouse, into the elevator that would take him to the lobby and the car that would take him to the office and the meeting that would determine his future, Theo realized that his wife was right about one thing. He was choosing. And everyone would know what he chose. Sometimes the biggest decisions come disguised as the smallest moments. Have you ever had to choose between what you built and what you love? Between security and authenticity? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you navigated impossible choices. The elevator descended through 43 floors of Blackstone Tower, and with each floor, Theo felt the weight of his decision pressing down on him like the building itself. By the time he reached the parking garage, his hands were shaking. His driver, Marcus, was waiting by the Tesla, door already open. Good morning, Mr. Blackstone. Howard Chen called. He said to tell you the board meeting has been moved to the executive conference room. They want this handled privately. Theo slid into the back seat, his suit still draped over his arm. Marcus, how long have you worked for me? 7 years, sir. In 7 years, have you ever seen me miss an important meeting? No, sir. Never. Have you ever seen me put anything before business? Marcus caught his eye in the rearview mirror. Sir, is everything all right? Answer the question. No, sir. You've never put anything before business. What would you do if you had to choose between your job and your family? Marcus was quiet for a long moment as they pulled out of the garage into the gray December morning. With respect, sir, I don't think I'd be in a position where I had to choose. I mean, I work to support my family, but I don't work instead of my family. What's the difference? I work 40 hours a week, sir. You work about 100. I have dinner with my kids every night. You have dinner with shareholders and board members. I coach my daughter's soccer team on weekends. You take conference calls. I'm providing for my family. Are you, sir? Because from where I sit, it looks like you're providing for a lifestyle. But I don't know if that's the same as providing for a family. Theo stared out the window at the city he'd conquered, the empire he'd built, the kingdom he ruled. Marcus, what time is it? 8:47 a.m., sir. The board meeting is at 10 a.m. Yes, sir. I need to make a stop first. Where to? Brooklyn Children's Home on Atlantic Avenue. Marcus's eyebrows rose in the rearview mirror. Sir, that's in the opposite direction from the office. If we go there first, you'll be late for the board meeting. I know. Should I call Howard and tell him you're running behind? No. Don't call anyone. As they drove through Manhattan toward Brooklyn, Theo called information and got the number for the children's home. His hands were still shaking as he dialed. Brooklyn Children's Home, this is Carol. Hello, this is Theodore Blackstone. I'm calling about Sophia Chun. I understand she's being transferred today. Oh, Mr. Blackstone. Sophia mentioned you. Yes, she's scheduled to be moved to the Westchester facility at 2 p.m. Is she there now? Yes, she's in the common room. She's been asking about you, actually. She wanted to know if you took her advice about your wife. Can I speak with her? Of course. Hold on. The phone went quiet for a moment, then he heard her voice. Mr. Theo? Hey, Sophia. I heard you're moving today. Yeah. They said the new place is nicer. It has a big yard and everything. That sounds good. I guess. Did you talk to your wife? I did. Did you tell her about the dancing? I did. We danced. See? I told you. Was she happy? Theo closed his eyes. She was. For a while. What happened? It's complicated. Adults always say that when they're scared. I'm not scared. You sound scared. Your voice is all shaky. I have a big meeting today. A very important meeting. More important than your wife. That's what I'm trying to figure out. That's easy. Nothing is more important than the people you love. My foster mom taught me that before she died. It's not always that simple. It is, though. You just make it complicated because you're scared of losing your money. I'm not scared of losing my money. Then why don't you just skip the meeting and come say goodbye to me? The suggestion hit him like a physical blow. I can't just skip the meeting. Why not? Because people are counting on me. Your wife is counting on you too. It's different. How? Because if I don't go to this meeting, I might lose my job. So? You can get another job. It's not that simple. It is. You're just scared. I'm not scared. Then prove it. How? Come say goodbye to me instead of going to your meeting. Theo looked out the window. They were crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, the city spreading out beneath them like a map of his empire. In 30 minutes, he was supposed to be sitting in a boardroom, explaining to 12 board members why his moment of humanity shouldn't cost him his position as CEO. Sophia, can I ask you something? Sure. When you were moving from house to house, from family to family, were you ever scared? All the time. What did you do when you were scared? I remembered what my foster mom told me. She said that love is the only thing that's real. Everything else is just stuff. Everything else is just stuff. Yeah. Houses and money and toys and clothes, it's all just stuff. But love is real. Love stays with you even when everything else goes away. Even when you lose everything else. Yeah. Like, I lost my foster mom and my house and my toys and my friends, but I still have the love she gave me. Nobody can take that away. And you think love is more important than security? Love is security. When someone really loves you, you're never really alone. But when someone just takes care of you because they have to, you're always alone, even when they're right there. Theo felt something crack open in his chest. Sophia, I want to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Okay. Do you think my wife really loves me? Yeah. I could tell when you talked about her. She's just tired of waiting for you to love her back. I do love her. I know. But you love your job more. That's not true. Then why are you going to the meeting instead of going home to her? Because I have responsibilities. To who? To my employees. To my shareholders. To people who don't love you. The words hit him like a slap. They depend on me. They depend on your money. That's different. Is it? Yeah. If you lost all your money tomorrow, would they still care about you? Theo was quiet for a long moment. Probably not. But would your wife still care about you? Yes. Then why are you choosing the people who don't love you over the person who does? Because I'm scared, he said quietly. Of what? Of being nobody. You're not nobody. You're Mr. Theo. You're the man who listened to me in the park when everyone else just walks by. You're the man who cared about a weird kid who talks too much. I'm also the man who built a company from nothing. So? My foster mom was a nurse. She saved people's lives. But she still made time to read me stories and teach me how to make pancakes. Being important at work doesn't mean you have to be absent at home. It's not that simple. It is. You just have to decide what's more important, being powerful or being loved. Can't I be both? Not if being powerful means you don't have time to be loved. Theo looked at his watch. 9:23 a.m. In 37 minutes, 12 board members would be sitting around a conference table, waiting for him to explain why he was worth keeping as CEO. Sophia, what if I told you I was thinking about skipping my meeting? I'd say you're finally getting smart. And what if I told you I was scared? I'd say that's okay. Being scared means you care about something. What if I told you I wanted to come see you before you moved? I'd say hurry up. The van comes at 2 p.m. What if I told you I wanted to bring my wife with me? I'd say that sounds like a good idea. What if I told you I might lose everything? I'd say you can't lose everything if you're gaining the things that matter. Theo closed his eyes. Marcus. Yes, sir. Turn around. We're going home. Sir, the board meeting. I know about the board meeting. I'm not going. Sir, are you sure? No. But I'm doing it anyway. As they drove back toward Manhattan, Theo called Howard. Where are you? Howard's voice was tight with stress. The board members are already here. I'm not coming. What do you mean you're not coming? I mean I'm not coming to the meeting. Are you insane? They'll remove you as CEO. Maybe. Maybe? Theo, this is your company. This is everything you've worked for. No, it's not. It's a company. It's a job. It's not everything. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that I've spent 15 years building something that I thought was my life, but it's not my life. It's my work. Your work is your life. No. My work is my work. My life is my wife, my marriage, my family. My life is connections and relationships and love. My work is just how I pay for my life. You're having a breakdown. I'm having a breakthrough. The board will never accept this. Then they'll remove me as CEO. And then what? Then I'll figure out what comes next. You're throwing away everything. I'm choosing everything that matters. Theo, please. Think about what you're doing. I am thinking about it. For the first time in years, I'm really thinking about it. I can stall them for an hour. 2 hours, maybe. If you change your mind. I won't change my mind. How can you be sure? Because I have a little girl to say goodbye to, and a wife to come home to, and a marriage to save. And all of that matters more than a boardroom full of people who wouldn't care about me if I wasn't making the money. You're making a mistake. I'm making a choice. Theo hung up and called Victoria. Hello. It's me. How did the meeting go? I didn't go. What do you mean? I mean I chose. I chose you. I chose us. I chose to be the man I told you I wanted to be. Theo. I'm coming home. I want you to come with me to say goodbye to Sophia. They'll fire you. Probably. You'll lose everything. I'll lose my job. I'll lose my position. I'll lose my company. But I won't lose you. I won't lose us. I won't lose the chance to be the man who deserves you. What if you regret it? What if I don't? What if we can't make it work? What if we can? What if you resent me for making you choose? What if I thank you for making me choose? Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure about this? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. Okay. Okay. I'll come with you to say goodbye to Sophia. And after that? After that, we'll figure out what comes next. Together. Together. As Marcus pulled up to their building, Theo looked at his reflection in the window. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes, his hair was messed up, his eyes were red from lack of sleep, and he was about to lose everything he'd spent 20 years building. He had never felt more like himself in his life. Marcus, one more stop after this. Yes, sir. Brooklyn Children's Home. And Marcus. Yes, sir. Thank you. For what, sir? For reminding me what's important. I didn't do anything, sir. You did everything. As the elevator climbed toward the penthouse, toward his wife, toward the beginning of whatever came next, Theo realized that Sophia had been right about one thing. Love was the only thing that was real. Everything else was just stuff. And he was finally ready to choose what was real. Have you ever reached a moment where you had to choose between security and authenticity? Between what you've built and what you love? Theo's about to face the consequences of his choice, and I think you'll be surprised by what happens next. If you're invested in seeing how this story ends, make sure you're subscribed because the finale is going to be everything you're hoping for and more. The Brooklyn children's home smelled like disinfectant and hope, an odd combination that somehow made perfect sense to Theo as he walked through the front doors with Victoria's hand in his. It was 11:47 a.m. on December 30th, 2024, and he had officially been unemployed for exactly 1 hour and 47 minutes. His phone had been buzzing constantly, reporters, board members, investors, but he'd turned it off somewhere around the Williamsburg Bridge. The silence felt like freedom. "Mr. Blackstone?" A woman in her 50s approached them, her smile warm despite the chaos of children's voices echoing through the hallways. "I'm Carol. We spoke on the phone. Sophia's been waiting for you. This is my wife, Victoria." "Oh, wonderful. Sophia's told us so much about both of you. She's in the common room, but I should warn you, she's been asking a lot of questions about what happened with your meeting." Victoria squeezed his hand. "She's going to want to know if her advice worked." "What do I tell her?" "The truth." They followed Carol down a hallway lined with children's artwork, crayon drawings of families, houses with crooked chimneys, stick figures holding hands under rainbow skies. The innocence of it all made Theo's chest tight. "There's something you should know," Carol said, stopping outside a door marked Common Room. "Sophia's been having a hard time with the move. She's finally found stability here, and the transfer is bringing up some old abandonment issues." "What kind of issues?" "She keeps asking if people really mean it when they say they care about her. She's been through so many placements that she's learned to expect disappointment." Victoria's grip on his hand tightened. "That's heartbreaking." "It is. But she lights up when she talks about you, Mr. Blackstone. She says you're the first adult who ever listened to her like she was a real person." "She is a real person. She's more real than most adults I know." Carol opened the door, and there she was, Sophia Chun, sitting cross-legged on a worn carpet, surrounded by stuffed animals and board games, but looking utterly alone despite the activity around her. "Mr. Theo." She jumped up and ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "You came. I thought maybe you decided your meeting was more important." "No meeting is more important than saying goodbye to you." She pulled back and looked at him with those impossibly wise eyes. "You look different." "Different how?" "Less scared. More. I don't know. More like yourself." "Sophia, I want you to meet someone very important. This is my wife, Victoria." Sophia studied Victoria with the same intensity she'd used on Theo in the park. "You're prettier than I imagined." Victoria laughed, kneeling down to Sophia's level. "And you're exactly as smart as Theo said you were." "Did he tell you about the dancing?" "He did. We danced for hours last night." "See? I told you that would work. Adults always think kids don't know anything about love, but we see everything. We just don't usually tell you because you don't usually listen." "Well, I'm listening now," Victoria said. "Good. Because I have more advice." "Oh no," Theo said, grinning. "Here we go." "Mr. Theo, did you go to your meeting?" "No, I didn't." "Did you get in trouble?" "Big trouble." "Are you sad about it?" "No. I'm not sad about it." "Are you scared?" "A little. But it's a good kind of scared." "What's a good kind of scared?" "It's when you're scared because you're doing something that matters, not because you're worried about losing something that doesn't matter." Sophia nodded solemnly. "That makes sense. So what happens now?" "Now I figure out what comes next." "What do you want to come next?" Theo looked at Victoria, then back at Sophia. I want to spend more time with the people I love. I want to be the kind of husband who remembers to dance with his wife. I want to be the kind of person who has time to listen to smart kids who have important things to say. That sounds good. But what about work? I'll find new work. Work that lets me be all those other things too. Promise. Promise. Sophia seemed satisfied with this answer. She turned to Victoria. Mrs. Victoria, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you going to forgive him? Victoria glanced at Theo, then back at Sophia. What do you mean? I mean, are you going to let him try again? Because he's really sorry. And he's really trying. And sometimes people mess up because they're scared, not because they don't care. How do you know so much about forgiveness? Because I've had to forgive a lot of people. My real parents, my foster parents, social workers, other kids who were mean to me. I learned that forgiveness isn't about letting people hurt you again. It's about letting them try again if they're really trying to be better. And you think Theo is really trying to be better? Yeah. I can tell. He's got different eyes now. Before, his eyes were all cloudy and far away. Now they're clear and looking right at you. Victoria reached out and touched Sophia's cheek. You're a very wise little girl. I know. It's because I pay attention. Most adults don't pay attention to what's really happening. What do you think is really happening right now? I think Mr. Theo is finally learning how to love people more than he loves things. And I think you're learning how to trust that he means it this time. What about you? What's happening with you? Sophia's confident expression faltered slightly. I'm learning that sometimes when you help people, they remember you. Usually when I help people, they forget about me as soon as I'm gone. We're not going to forget about you, Theo said. You say that now, but when I'm in Westchester and you're fixing your marriage, you'll be busy with your own life. What if I told you that fixing my marriage includes making sure you're part of our life? What do you mean? Theo looked at Victoria, who nodded. What if I told you that Victoria and I have been talking about becoming parents? You mean having a baby? I mean expanding our family. Maybe through adoption. Sophia's eyes went wide. You mean, you want to adopt someone? We want to adopt someone very specific. Someone who's smart and funny and wise and who gives excellent marriage advice. You want to adopt me? If you want to be adopted by us. Sophia looked back and forth between them. But you don't even know me. I know you well enough, Theo said. I know you're brave enough to talk to strangers in the park. I know you're smart enough to see through people's walls. I know you're kind enough to care about fixing other people's problems. I know you're wise enough to understand what love really means. What if I'm too much trouble? What if you're exactly the right amount of trouble? What if I say the wrong thing or ask too many questions? What if those are some of the things we love most about you? What if you change your mind? What if we don't? Sophia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Mrs. Victoria, do you really want me? Because I'm not like other kids. I'm weird and I think too much and I talk about grown-up things. Sophia, can I tell you something? What? I've been married to your Mr. Theo for 15 years, and he's weird and thinks too much and talks about grown-up things. I think you'll fit right in. Really? Really? Besides, someone needs to keep giving him marriage advice. I clearly need all the help I can get. Sophia laughed, but then her face grew serious again. What if the social workers say no? Then we'll keep asking until they say yes, Theo said. I didn't build a company from nothing by giving up easily. What if it takes a long time? Then we'll visit you every week until it's done. What if? Sophia, Victoria interrupted gently. What if you just said yes? Sophia looked at both of them, these two adults who had somehow found their way to each other through her, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years, the possibility of permanence. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes. I want to be part of your family. The three of them stood there in the common room of the Brooklyn Children's Home, surrounded by the chaos of other people's children, and for the first time in months, Theo felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. So what happens now? Sophia asked. Now we start the paperwork, Victoria said. Now we fight through the bureaucracy. Now we prove to everyone that we're serious about this. Now we become a family, Theo added. Even though you lost your job? Especially because I lost my job. Because now I'll have time to be a dad. A real dad? Not just a weekend dad or a checkbook dad. A real dad. The kind who helps with homework and makes pancakes and shows up to school plays. The kind who listens. The kind who listens. 6 months later, on a warm June evening in 2025, Theo stood in the backyard of their new house in Brooklyn Heights, smaller than the penthouse, but filled with the sound of Sophia's laughter as she played with their neighbor's dog. Victoria was inside, making dinner, humming the song they danced to that night in December. His consulting firm was small but growing, focused on helping family-owned businesses navigate succession planning. He worked 40 hours a week, not 100. He had dinner with his family every night. He coached Sophia's soccer team on weekends. The reporters had called him crazy for walking away from billions. The business magazines had written articles about his spectacular fall from grace. The board of directors had replaced him within a week. But sitting on his back porch, watching his daughter, chase fireflies in the twilight, Theo realized that losing everything had been the best thing that ever happened to him. Because he hadn't lost everything. He had found everything. Dad. Sophia called out. Come catch fireflies with me. In a minute, he called back. No now. They won't wait for you. She was right, of course. She was always right. The fireflies wouldn't wait. Love wouldn't wait. Life wouldn't wait. And finally, Theo Blackstone had learned to stop waiting too. He got up from his chair and ran toward his daughter, toward the fireflies, toward the beautiful, imperfect, absolutely perfect life he had chosen over the empire he had built. I'm coming, he called out. And for the first time in years, he meant it. So there you have it. Sometimes the most successful people are the ones who know when to walk away from success. Theo learned that the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars, and sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what really matters. What do you think? Have you ever had to choose between what you thought you wanted and what you actually needed? Drop a comment below and let me know. And if this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to be reminded that love is the only thing that's real. Everything else is just stuff. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.